Hello, hello, and thank you all for finding us here at Press A to Talk. My name's Kurt. I'm here with John
Hello, hello.
and Ryder.
Hello, hello.
And today we're going to talk about our most anticipated games of 2023. And I thought we would just jump right out the gate and talk about The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. I'm a huge Zelda fan. Breath of the Wild is it's my favorite series, but Breath of the Wild is like my number three game. I prefer the more linear or the more like top down exploratory Zeldas to like the big open world. And that's just because I kind of have problems with every game being open world nowadays. But Breath of the Wild was still amazing. I'm excited to see what this game is going to do. What are y'all thinking?
Um, I'm still partway through my playthrough of the first one, of the ones that are on Switch anyway. And I really like the open world aspect that we're going for there. It really made very much of a time sink for the game, but in a good way. Just running around, just exploring, doing whatever I wanted. I'm sure there was something important I was supposed to be doing in the background, but I was very much rather just wanting to cook a bunch of different things.
Ryder?
I'm extremely excited. I've yet to finish uh, Breath of the Wild, and it's not for lack of trying. Um, I think I've put close to 200 hours in, but right now where I've gotten stopped at is I actually bought all the DLC for the game, and I played through all the Divine Beast challenges.
Mm-hmm.
I finished that entire DLC. I have the great motorcycle, the best part of the game for sure. Uh, but what I'm stuck on is the Master Sword trials. Um,
You're not
it,
worthy.
I'm not worthy. It really what it is I don't feel like having to put in the effort to prep on the front end. I finished literally every shrine in the game, and so I've maxed out on hearts slash stamina wheel, but there's the other prep work that has to go into potions and stuff, and so it's kind of stopped me. But the bigger point with this is I think it's an amazing game. It is one of the best open world games I've ever played, if not the best. I'm not the biggest Zelda fan. I think Zelda games are very consistent. I think it's hard to debate that they are good, but a lot of them have never really been my cup of tea. But for some reason, Breath of the Wild just really struck a chord with me, and it is one of the best games I've ever played. And I think I'm comfortable saying it's like one of my favorite games ever. uh, 4 or 5 years down the road since I initially started playing the game. So I'm very excited. I'm interested to see how they take a lot of the core mechanics and really build on them. I know there's looks like there's going to be a lot more verticality in the game with maybe flight and stuff. So I'm kind
There's
of curious
there's
how
islands
that's
in the
going to play out.
sky. There's some kind of vehicle slash automaton that's like flying Link around for like a second in one of the trailers. So I don't know.
So, important question. What is something you would like to see in Tears of the Kingdom that is not in Breath of the Wild? Either one of you can take that.
I would like to see more traditional dungeons.
I knew this was going to come up
Yeah,
from you from pretty much anyone who's a traditional Zelda fan.
I
Uh,
I don't have a problem with like the weapons breaking. Like I'm not one of the people that's like they need to fix that. Like that was part of the mechanics, and it's what made exploring worthwhile
mm-hmm,
a lot of the
mm-hmm.
time. But the Divine Beasts were just not great dungeons. They were okay, but they were all the same aesthetic. They were all the same theme, and it just got old. And I love doing the shrines because they're just like a little chunk. But I got really tired of wandering around the Divine Beast by like the third one.
Fair enough.
I mostly agree with that as far as the assessment of kind of the way the Divine Beasts worked. They're kind of annoying a lot of times because there's so much backtracking required to be like, all right, now what's happening? All right, so I move this. Okay, now this piece moves. All right, now let me run back over here, and it's the exact same space you're pretty much seeing the entire time. And the puzzles are interesting, but like you said, it's kind of redundant. My limited Zelda knowledge, which is really Ocarina of Time, and the original Zelda game, I don't really care for the dungeons. I love the shrines. I think they're a great kind of counter to traditional dungeons because they are, um, short, simple, sweet, and there's so many different ways you can solve them. And there's never getting stuck on how do I solve this because there's one specific thing I need to do to fix this. A lot of times with the shrines, there might be five, six, a dozen different ways you can solve an issue if you're creative enough. And you go watch YouTube videos and see this. You can search whatever shrine, and you can go watch through the first like 3 or 4 examples, and every way of someone completing the shrine might be a completely different way. And I think that's awesome. It's one of the things that makes the game so good, just in general, is the way you can approach every situation differently.
But I don't think that returning traditional dungeons has to regress to there being like one solution. Like, you got to go to the far east room and get the key and then kill the monsters in this room and then open the door. Like, it doesn't have to be that way. You can still use those dungeons or those like puzzle mechanics that are a little more open-ended and also have unique settings and aesthetics and enemy variety, because enemy variety is like the second thing that I really want to see change in this, because there's like 6, 7 basic enemy types and then like 3 or 4 bosses that are just like in the overworld. It's really repetitive, and that showed in Breath of the Wild, and that showed in the Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity game, where eventually you get halfway through the game and you've already fought Lionels and Hinoxes, and then they're like, Ice Hinox. It's like, what? You Fire Guardian? What? You can't just, okay, sure, I guess you can do that. So I really hope we see some enemy variety and some more unique dungeons, I guess I'll say. We haven't really seen gameplay from this. We just kind of seen like 2 or maybe 3 2-minute trailers. Have you guys just accepted that this is going to be an amazing game? Or are you guys just kind of like, once they show me that something's going to be amazing or something that looks amazing, then I'll buy into the hype?
It's going to be good. That's all I have to say. I mean, I think it'd be very difficult for them to. I'm not going to say that. I think it'd be very easy for them to mess this up. I think, given the track record, it would be very hard for them to actually let themselves do that. If that makes sense.
John?
Yeah, well, I'm not the greatest Zelda fan. I'll leave that for all of my other friends. However, I mean, like Ryder had said, they could easily mess it up if they tried, but it's, their track record with the games, hasn't been that bad. So I'm not expecting anything negative,
Okay.
especially from the Zelda fan base.
So do you think it's going to be like 10 out of 10s across the board like the last game was? Like, do you think this is going to be a medium shattering like tentpole?
Yes to the first half, maybe no to the second.
Yeah.
Because I think the Breath of the Wild, shattered expectations because it completely goes against the grain, and it's just a completely different type of open world game, and a genre that was getting kind of worn out. It was like, here, let me make this something you've never done before. The just vastness of the world, how explorable everything is, and then Elden Ring did the same thing, and I think maybe this could do the same thing again. I think it's going to be probably 10 out of 10s across the board, 9.5s out of 10s across the board. But is it going to set a new bar inside of the genre again? I don't know. Maybe. I hope so, because I'm always down for good games.
Yeah, that'd be pretty crazy. Love Zelda. I'm excited because it is a Zelda game. I have not seen anything different enough from Breath of the Wild to make me like super hyped. I'm sure closer to release time I'll be hyped, but I'm excited because the Zelda game's coming out this year, but I'm not as excited as I was for Breath of the Wild. John, you wanted to talk about Meet Your Maker.
Absolutely. So you guys have probably heard of this small indie company. Let's see, Behavior Interactive. They've made a game called Dead by Daylight at some point. Yeah, well, they're actually coming out with a new game in April called Meet Your Maker. And it's going to be basically a post-apocalyptic first-person building game where you're going to be building this huge tower or basically whatever you want to build, filled with traps, monsters, and anything you can do to keep anyone from getting to the center of it. And then all the other players of the world. You're going to be raiding these other things, outposts, called outposts. There we go. That people have built, and your goal is to get to the center and steal whatever's inside, and vice versa. You have to protect yours with all the different builds that you can come up with. And so yeah, it's basically just seems like a roguelike where you can just go in, fight random ones that are built by other players, and just have fun with it. And you will not even have to do that alone because it also has co-ops. You can grab a friend or two. I don't know if they've actually listed how much co-op you're allowed. I know in the trailer I watched there was at least one other person, so it's at least 2-player co-op.
Could you imagine rolling up into someone's carefully crafted dungeon with like 9 people and just ending whatever they have going on?
Yes, I've
That's
played
called
Ark
Rust.
before.
Oh, that's called
yeah.
Rust.
See,
My bad.
Yeah, we both went in different directions, but the same place essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I saw this is like PvP building dungeon crawler. I was like, oh, John's gonna be excited for this game.
Absolutely. Because coming from an Ark background, all the care and everything I took into raising the dinos, getting all the turrets put up with my tribe, farming all those resources. Based on what I'm thinking about this game, you don't have to do half of the stuff that is a real grind. You just build your layouts, set up your defenses, and I'm sure there's some unlocks that are involved in this as you progress through the game, of course. But there's not all that terrible grinding that goes into that, and then watching it all disappear. Because the whole point of this game, it seems, is eventually your outpost is going to be broken into, and then you'll have to make improvements to keep other players out. So you'll be less scared to log on and see that your stuff's been destroyed, I would say. But only one way to find out. That'll be April for me to figure it out.
Are you more?
So as far as
go ahead.
Well, go ahead. I was just gonna ask, because I have like PTSD, Vietnam flashbacks to time playing Rust, and spending hours, actually full days of my life just building a base, destroyed. And then logging on after 3 or 4 hours of doing something else, taking a break for once to be a human, and then coming back and then being like, oh wow, someone blew my brains out in my sleep and took every bit of my material. And is this something that people can just choose, all right, random map, and it just sends you in? Or are you going to have like your own world to build in, like a server that other people can join onto you? Do you know that much yet?
Good question. I don't think they've gone into that much detail about it just yet, at least in the trailers I've seen. All they've highlighted is the fact that you can continue to try to raid the same one over and over again. And you can invite friends to do it as well. And that's the breadth of the trailer so far.
I'm assuming it'll like that kind of sounds like Metal Gear Solid 5 had like a system with base building, and I'm assuming that if you're able to raid it, you get some benefits or whatnot. If you're able to repel it, maybe you get extra experience, money, whatever, for everybody you repel from your base, which allows you to upgrade your base better. Again, I'm just kind of pulling this out of my mind, but it kind of makes sense.
Are you more excited for the building or for the raiding?
Well, I am a base builder, so
okay.
One thing I really hope they implement in this is you can do your own penetration testing on your outposts. So once I build one, I would like to go try to see how I could break into my own, so I can make the improvements. That's one thing I would really love, because I really get into the building aspect. I was the base builder and gatherer and stuff on Ark, so I'd like to just take those skills and just transfer those over.
I wonder, this is just like Super Mario Maker then.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, like, do you have to clear your own dungeons? Is that like a requirement so that they're not just like unwinnable?
That's a good question.
That's what Mario Maker did, so people couldn't just make impossible levels. It does
seem like just an amazing version of Super Mario Maker. So
because it's
Super Mario Maker, but with an original world in first person.
It seems like it would build on itself, because you make a dungeon, you have to clear it, so you get good enough to clear it, and then people beat it.
What to do.
And then you're like, okay, people beat it, and let me make it harder, and then you have to clear it again because you made changes, and then you get better, so you're better at raiding other people's dungeons. I could see people getting very good at both sides of this very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
I do believe they're going to have to come up with a way to make it not impossible. However, based on the stuff that they've shown, I don't think anything is impossible to get past. I don't believe any of the stuff instantly kills you. just is based on what I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess only time will tell as we get hopefully more trailers for this game, and as we get closer to release date.
Ryder, what's the first game you want to talk about that you're excited for?
Um, you know, I have a whole bunch, and this is not one that maybe
This is installing.
Yeah, it's installing right now. It's not something I should maybe uh, say that I'm qualified to speak on, but I think I'm very excited for the prospect of this game for like a number of reasons. And it's Stalker 2, part of Chernobyl. Um, Chernobyl, I believe, is the Ukrainian pronunciation.
Actually,
And
just looking at this, and it looks beautiful.
Mhm.
Honestly,
it
It
is.
does.
It's a beautiful game. It's one of
in
those.
a
It's kind of
grotesque way.
been. It very much so. It's been stuck in development hell forever. I own, I think, the first three games, and again, this just shows how unqualified I am to talk about it. But I intend to play them at some point. I've heard they're extremely good games. They're kind of like the depressing cousin of Fallout, where Fallout is almost like a parody of post-apocalyptic life, and makes fun of the politics and the world that kind of got us to this
Mm-hmm.
horrible condition.
Yeah.
Stalker is very much just like the extremely bleak version of that. But a big part of why I think this is highly anticipated for me. It's exciting. Is because of one, just the fact of development hell that it's been stuck in for so long, and how much time and effort and love the team has put into this. There's also the fact that this game is kind of microcosm of like things like the Ukrainian war going on right now, the invasion of Ukraine. There's developers who worked on this game who actually joined up and died fighting against the Russian invaders.
Yeah.
And for this game to release during such a turbulent time just shows like the resilience of the Ukrainian people. And again, this game, which is kind of like the depressing side of like I said, this post-apocalyptic landscape, there's really nothing to be hopeful for. That kind of goes against the grain for something like this, art to be published in a time in which people are fighting to survive. I think I'm extremely excited for it, largely for that reason, because people have put in so much time into this, and it deserves to see the light of day.
Yeah, it's really interesting seeing kind of current events in history in the making, like crossing over with just video games, because generally it's just this entire separate thing. Like, yeah, we have Call of Duties that set themselves in like modern warfare, but those either those are like fantastical takes on it where it's not realistic, and it doesn't really have a message. And I'm not saying that this game, obviously, this game was in development long before Russia invaded Ukraine, but like it is by those people, and they are fighting right now. It's just crazy that game developers are making this history right now. I just think it's wild that that's happening, and I wish them nothing but the best. Hope that they stay safe and that they are able to release this project they've been working on. It was pretty wild when it got delayed from its release last April because of everything going on in the world.
Slava Ukraine.
There's no good segue from that,
Absolutely.
if we're being honest.
So I have a good segue. So speaking of that, it heavily reminds me. I haven't played Stalker, any of the other ones. However, it heavily reminds me of Metro 2033 and those games. And I was trying to do some quick research to see if it was the same company, and it looks like some of the developers might be formerly from 4A Games, which is who worked on Metro 2033.
I believe so. I think that actually that's also a Ukrainian studio. It is.
That's
yeah.
cool.
So it is a Ukrainian studio. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I played through almost all the first one. I still got a little bit to go do there at some point, but I did love that game, and it definitely reminds me of the environments I'm seeing in the trailers for this new game. So this is definitely something I pick up because just their whole themes for these games as well as the art style is just 10 out of 10.
Hey, go support those guys. go buy some
Absolutely.
of their games. Here's a not great segue. A game that I personally supported on Kickstarter that I'm excited that's coming out this year is A Frog's Tale. A Frog's Tale is an RPG, pixel art. It's inspired by the Mario and Luigi series, and it's like has rhythm-based combat. So Mario, if you ever played the Paper Mario games, like the older ones or the Mario and Luigi series, you know that you have like a jump attack, and if you press the button right when you land on the enemy's head, it'll do more damage and that kind of thing. This has kind of that system, but it is also with the music. So you time your attacks, and the animations are supposedly going to line up with the music.
Like we did in that one game.
Do it.
Like we did in the one game we did.
Which you want Sly Cooper, that rhythm minigame?
Yeah, Sly Cooper.
Oh my gosh, this better be a better rhythm minigame than that. But yeah, the art looks gorgeous. The characters look great. The two main characters are a frog and a turtle, which are two of the best animals. So that's just fun. And I love Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga. It's probably one of my favorite RPGs just ever. And so this is taking inspiration from that, and it's also got like the creative indie spin behind it. I'm really looking forward to playing through that whenever it comes out at some point this year.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It looks fun. I like the art style. I really like Mario and Luigi, so that actually kind of caught my attention. You know, I was watching the trailer and trying to think before we started recording. I was trying to think what it reminded me of, and there's a couple of things that were standing out here and there. But yeah, that makes a lot of sense actually. Mario and Luigi or Paper Mario.
Superstar Saga. Yeah, I played that on the Game Boy. That was really fun. So I'll have to keep an eye on this one.
I've got a really bad habit of getting to final bosses and just not pushing through, and that was one of the times where that's happened.
I broke through that on Elden Ring.
Congratulations. I'm like 5 bosses from the end of Elden Ring. But yeah, go play Super Mario Superstar Saga, and then also play A Frog's Tale when that comes out.
And Elden Ring.
But play Dark Souls 1 through 3 first, because they're better. I know you guys are excited for Sons of the Forest. I don't really know anything about those games because I'm a little baby who doesn't play spooky games, but talk to me about it.
I'm very excited. I remember following the forest, I believe, because of Robos. Kurt knows who Robos is because I think I was obsessed with him probably senior year of high school or so. John, I might have forced you to watch some Robos. I don't remember. Hilarious YouTuber. I am not going to say which country he's from because I'm going to be wrong, and this will be the one video he ends up watching, and he'll be very angry. Because if I say he's Swedish and he's Norwegian, he'll lose it. If I say he's Norwegian and he's Swedish, he'll lose it. But he's either Swedish or Norwegian.
I mean, I can just look it up.
But while he's looking that up, is Robos King of Sweden?
He's Swedish.
He says in his
Swedish.
He says that in his intro. So I'm thinking.
Are you even a fan?
Robos here, King of Sweden.
The Norwegian King of Sweden. It's got a good ring to it.
He played that, and I could watching it was like, hey, this is kind of terrifying. Watching like naked cannibals try to bash your brains in and eat you. It was very scary watching it, but the base building and stuff was interesting. And he somehow made something as terrifying as it was very, very funny. And it was in very, very early access at that point. And one day I was on the PlayStation Store and popped up for PS4, and I was like, let me try this. I bought it, convinced my brothers to buy it, and 3 of us ended up playing through the entire game. Probably put like 80 hours or so into it over the course of one summer, between the base building, actually going through the story, whatnot. It's a lot of fun. It's one of my favorite survival, just base building games in general. So much fun. And whenever this was announced, I went crazy because it looks so good, and it takes everything from the first game. It looks like it just ramps it up to 1,000.
So I know there's survival elements to it. I know that technically, like, Resident Evil is survival horror because you're, trying to preserve ammunition and healing items. How much is it like that kind of survival, or is it more for lack of a better example, come to mind like Minecraft Survival, where you're actually gathering like wood and stone and crafting like tools to make shelter and whatever.
It's just like Minecraft.
Yeah,
You should try it. It's just like Minecraft.
just like Minecraft. Do they have the pigs?
There's
the
no
cute
like
square
durability
pigs?
and stuff on weapons, but I mean, as far as like having to have food, there's stamina, water. You have to make sure you're drinking water, fresh water. If you drink dirty water, it can make you sick.
I could describe for you your first hour in the forest if you would like.
Yeah.
Go ahead and hit him with it.
All right, you're gonna wake up on a plane. You're gonna find a bunch of luggages, and you're gonna start gathering all the random stuff in those.
Lug-eye is plural,
Yes,
by the way.
lug-eye. Yes, you're gonna find a little axe, little bitty orange axe, and you're gonna pop them open, a little doop doop, and then you're gonna walk around and be like, "This isn't so bad. This looks like a walk in the park." And then you're gonna hear these ominous screeches and howls from the corners and recesses of the woods, and then you're gonna be like, "All right, this is all right. I'm just gonna ignore whatever that sound is," and then you're gonna come to these spikes that have human remains on them, and you're gonna be like, "I'm gonna steer clear of those," and then you're gonna run to a hill over far away from that, only to be jumped by a gang of vicious cannibals who begin clubbing you and attacking you, and then running away to call all their friends to tell you where you are. There you go.
I hope you guys have a great time with that. This sounds like the opposite of a game that I want to play, but I'm really happy for you.
It's so much fun.
I believe you.
Fun. So one thing I do hope for is I hope that their crafting and building is going to be a lot more fun. I'm not saying that the first one wasn't fun. It is very fun. However, if you so choose to do it, you do not have to build a single thing in order to go through the whole game. I guess that's a good thing, honestly. But I just felt like I wasn't getting very much of a strategic edge by doing any of the building. So we would end up only doing a small building or, just a big wall surrounding, one small house. And then we wouldn't really move forward with the building process just because by the time you go gather the stuff that makes building easy, you're like, well, now I feel like I'm closer to the end of the game. I might as well just go to the end. So it would be interesting if they made that more of something that could help you, I guess, because every time we built, I just felt like we were constantly under attack and couldn't really progress further with the building without, making it worse on ourselves with how far into the game we were, because it gets progressively more difficult.
So each day, the chances for like more difficult enemies come out, and by like day 7, it's not just cannibals now; it's like mutants, and they deal way more damage, and it gets worse and further along you go, and that's awesome. But I kind of agree with the building, where like the benefits maybe not immediate, but if you're spending a lot of time exploring, like me and my brothers refused to look up anything at all, so we were all just like naked and afraid. For the entire time we played it, and so anytime we encountered someone, it's absolutely terrifying for us, and so our base was our safe space. But the game, it's so cool the way they handle like a lot of the AI and stuff, because when you first meet enemies, they're actually afraid of you unless they're starving. But if you meet like another like one of the natives, they won't attack you. You think they're going to attack you, they might push you, but they never actually deal any damage to you. And it's because they're testing you out. They're not sure. And if you don't attack them initially, they actually won't attack you first. It's really cool how that works. But the more you destroy the forest to build a bigger base, the actually more aggressive they get, and other enemies start showing up earlier that wouldn't have showed up before. So all that's really cool. And I do hope that's improved as well. But these are all reasons why, considering how small the development team was, the fact that it was an indie release, the first game, they now have the funding and hopefully the manpower to make an even bigger and better game with Sons of the Forest.
That sounds really cool. Yeah. I didn't realize that the game had like that much depth to it. It always seemed kind of like one of those jump scare, survive if you can kind of games. So that's really cool. I'm excited for you guys. While we're talking about horror, I see y'all arguing in the Google Doc about this. Dead Space Remake. I'm going to let you guys mostly talk about this. I played the first like half of the original Dead Space on the PC like 8 years ago on this like the Steam version. I think like 8 years ago.
I have a story for you.
I really enjoyed it, and I stopped playing. And I don't really remember why. But John, what were you going to say?
Because you got scared.
I really don't think it was because I got scared. I was really proud of myself for pushing through that one actually.
So there was this one time I was at my friend Kurt's house, and I was telling him about some games that I played, and I told him I was excited for Callisto Protocol, and he was like, "Did you like Dead Space?" And I said, "I haven't played any of these yet." And he's like, "You haven't played any of the Dead Space games?" And I said, "No, not yet." And so that prompted me to make a nice Let's Play that's on this great YouTube channel called Press A to Talk, and it's all there for Dead Space 1. And so that is really sparked my curiosity for the Dead Space remake, just to see how many changes and improvements are going to be in the game, and it just made me really excited to jump into that as to see a different version of the game.
Okay, so you're like keyed up perfectly to answer the question. One, do you think the original is still like a fine game now? Like, would you just recommend that game now? And then two, what, if any, improvements do you want to see in the remake?
Absolutely. I think that game holds up extremely well. One thing I would like to see, just based on the date of the game, would be improved enemy AI. Because sometimes you can just stun lock them into position, and just easily get the kills. So some of the fights felt less intense and horrifying than they should have. After the initial scene, you're like, oh, well, I mean, I can just shoot this repeatedly, and it'll just move back and forth like this, stunned till it dies. So probably that would be one of the improvements I'd like to see, just improved AI. And then the graphics already look amazing in those trailers and the pictures I've seen. So I'll let Ryder talk a bit about it too as well.
So I have a decade, wow, over a decade long
Old.
history with Dead Space. I know, old. I actually started out of order and played Dead Space 2 first. I got it on sale. It was on sale at GameStop for like they had a Christmas sale one year. Get butt, get butt, and I got it because it was like $5. The game came out that year, but I was like, we'll do it.
Was that
And
1933?
yeah. It was a while ago, but I bought it and I played through all of it over Christmas break and I was like, that was really good. I have no clue what's going on because the second game does not waste time. I don't know, John, if you played the second game yet, but
I'm part the way through it. Yeah, if you did not play the first one, you were not going to have a clue what is going on.
It gives you enough because there was like a maybe like a recap that you could watch, and also just like it kind of fills you in as you go along. But the thing is, it's just night and day. The first one is very atmospheric, and it starts so much slower, kind of pulls you in. But the second game, it's just immediately like boom,
In your face.
yeah, and it doesn't stop. But I went back and played the first game, and I loved it. I love the first game. I love the second game. The third game came out like 2 years later, and I was going to play it with. I know, spoilers. I'll stop, but I was going to play through it with one of my high school friends. It was co-op. We ended up not doing that. Well, I don't even know if you can still play it co-op because it was on EA Play. EA has their own weird thing, and that's its own conversation. But I love the game. It's so much fun, and I will say the second game makes a lot of improvements on like the AI and stuff as far as that goes, and ammo is also like ammo conservation is a huge thing. When talking about survival horror, this game is way more in the vein of something like Resident Evil with conservation of ammo and health and stuff, and not just from the when should I use it, when should I hold on to it, but also again like Resident Evil inventory space, where you might look and be like, I only have 9 spaces to hold all of my ammo and health. Is it worth me doing this now, using this little bit of ammo to load my gun? I'm going to lose the rest, or I don't even remember now the exact mechanics. Just remember loving it. But to John's point, whereas he was like, "Oh, I'm excited for Callisto Protocol," and Kurt introduced him to Dead Space, I was excited for Callisto Protocol because of Dead Space, and seeing how Callisto Protocol apparently is not that great. I'm like, well, at least I have Dead Space Remake to look forward to.
Does it worry you at all?
I mean, it's not the same team.
No, it's not. I just was curious.
No. I mean, it's a pretty straight remake as far as I can tell. I mean, if there are improvements to AI, like making gameplay a little bit gunplay cleaner, that's fine. But I think the original game was fine in its current state, which that was also 10 years ago, though.
I don't know.
Really well, though.
I don't know how many changes they're making. I know that they're giving Isaac Clarke, the protagonist, he's going to be voiced this time because in the original he's a silent protagonist.
Mm-hmm.
I know that
that's a little,
eh.
yeah. I mean, that's its own video that I don't want to go into. But I think that is part of the atmosphere. Is he's a silent protagonist,
Sure.
and then throughout the series, kind of comes into himself. He does talk a little bit, but I think it's pretty bare bones.
It's very minimal.
It depends. I haven't finished the entire original, so I don't really have a super great idea of his character personality, especially since he's a silent protagonist for the most part. I'm going to turn that off and back on, see if I unfreeze. Okay. But, him being a not silent protagonist isn't necessarily the worst thing. It just depends on if he's like, oh my gosh, I've got to, I don't know, if he's like serious about what's happening, or if he's like a Resident Evil character where he like kills a giant sun-eating space monster and is like, you messed with me at a bad time. Like, that's gonna depend. Like, how he's voiced is gonna depend on whether or not it's gonna be obnoxious. I'm excited for you guys. I probably am not gonna pick it up. I think I'd rather go through the original before I was gonna buy it again, just because the original was really good when I played it. So if I can get that same experience, but who knows what's gonna happen. Pikmin 4. Have any of you guys played like any of the Pikmin games?
Yeah, I've played Pikmin 1 and Pikmin 2.
Looks fun, though.
Yeah, I've played Pikmin
love the little guys.
1 and 3, and I think they're both great. I think Pikmin 3 in particular is a fantastic game. So I'm really excited. It's weird whenever like the year that Pikmin 3 was coming out, Miyamoto, who was one of the lead, I don't know if he was lead developer, but he had like a lot of influence on it at Nintendo, was like, yeah, we're almost done with Pikmin 4. Everybody's like, what? You're almost done with Pikmin 3's coming out like now? You're done with Pikmin 4?
Like, I said what I said.
Yeah, he's like, yeah. And people are like, okay. And then several years passed and no news from Pikmin happened at all. And then they announced a 3DS Pikmin game called Hey Pikmin. That was like a weird puzzly kind of side-scrolling collection game, and it looks cute, but I've heard it's not very good, and people are like, is that what he was talking about when he said Pikmin 4? And who knows, but last year at one of the Nintendo Directs, they officially unveiled Pikmin 4, and they say it's coming out this year. I will believe it when I see it. But also, besides Metroid Prime, okay, I guess it's not really a good argument when I'm going to name exceptions, but besides Metroid Prime and besides Zelda, Nintendo's really good about hitting release dates. Like, they don't delay many games. They also usually don't announce games without really specific release dates that are within a couple months. So this might be an exception to that rule. But I'm excited. It looks like the area that we're going to be exploring is like a backyard. So for people who don't know, Pikmin, you crash land on a planet. There's these little plant creatures that you basically get a bunch of them. They help you carry things, and you need to repair your ship or gather food to survive or gather treasure to make money to do your job. And it's kind of an unspoken thing that this takes place on Earth because you're collecting like AA batteries and like oranges and strawberries and like real things. But it's always been in nature, and there's just been kind of like litter and stuff like that laying around. Whereas this game, there's actually like benches and fences and I think a sandbox in it. So I think it's going to be really interesting. I don't really want a like giant, like 2-size human like walking around being a trap or anything like that, or like a hazard. But I just think a little person in a small world is a really cool aesthetic, and I'm really excited for this game. John, are you interested as someone who played the first two but skipped the third one?
Yeah, that is definitely something that I would play. I love the little Pikmin. They're great. The red one's the best.
The red one's the best.
Yeah, don't ask why.
Okay. I can't think of a very good reason, so I'll just have to imagine.
All right, orange one's number 2. So that would definitely be something I would pick up. So they haven't given it a release date yet, just this year?
It's literally a 30-second trailer that just shows some of the environments and like a couple of the enemies, and then it just says the title 2023, They released a couple of images later that kind of showed like the back side of the protagonist. It looks like a new protagonist based on their like features. Maybe someone that's related to a couple of the protagonists from Pikmin 3, but not sure. It might be one of the kids from that game, or one of the kids of the characters from that game. But who can say, "Hello, Wednesday"? Yes, nailed it. That's his cat Wednesday.
Scratcher of legs.
She just wants attention. Another little person, big world game that's going to come out supposedly this year is the Plucky Squire. Have y'all seen anything about the Plucky Squire?
I looked it up.
Honestly, not.
It was announced at like some kind of indie event, I think, and it's the art director from Pokemon Sword and Shield, whose name is escaping me right now. He is working on this game, and it looks great. It starts with a storybook kind of look, and it looks like a top-down game that you're playing in a storybook, and then when you get to the edge, the page flips and you keep on going, and there's like a punch-out kind of section, there's like a Zelda kind of section, but then you get to the end of the book, and the character pops out, and then it becomes like a 3D platformer where you're exploring like the inside of someone's home, like a desk with a bunch of objects, and you can also hop back and forth between like 2D and 3D, kind of like in Mario Odyssey, where like there's a part where you're hopping on a mug and going through like a side-scrolling section there, and it looks gorgeous. I'm always really excited with what indies are going to come up with, and also just love the art. James Turner, that's his name. That's the art director. Nailed it. It looks really good. I think you guys would probably enjoy it.
From Pokemon Sword and Shield, the anime?
No, from the games. He was the art director, so he wasn't in charge of like graphics or anything, but he designed.
Okay.
Yeah, he helped like design characters and Pokemon and like the aesthetics of the game.
Which just kind of shows when you're given creative freedom how much better a product you can make. We'll stop it there. This looks very good. This looks extremely impressive. This looks like a lot of fun. I love the storybook. The 3D side, like the actual room and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
phenomenal. It's gorgeous.
That room is what my brain thinks Andy's room from
Toy
Story looks like. Even though it didn't look like that at all in the movie, because the movie's pretty dated at this point, the original movie. So, but this is just what my mind sees, like when I think of Andy's room from Toy Story. So I think they just nailed it. So
it's
it just
Devolver. Devolver is a very, very consistent publisher as well. So
absolutely,
they're
pretty safe.
They're probably the indie publisher that I trust most. Like if I see Devolver on it, I'm like, I'll probably play that at some point because it's probably going to be very good.
We just did a video on Cult of the Lamb not too long ago. Check it out, guys.
Cult of the Lamb, Inscription, everything. So good. John, you wanted to talk about Atomic Heart?
Yeah, absolutely. So, have you ever wanted to go to a utopia world and fight cybernetic enemies with a giant mace that has saw blades in it? Well, this is your opportunity. So,
ruin the utopia.
I didn't... Yes. I'd heard of this, but I hadn't seen gameplay or anything, and I was looking it up this afternoon to be like, what is this game? This is the bloodiest game that I've seen in a long time. It looks so violent.
It just gives me heavy BioShock vibes. I know that's probably anyone that's watched a review on this game or anything so far has heard that a million times, but for good reason, because you are going into this dystopian nightmare world, and you're just causing mayhem and upgrading and just doing whatever it is you want to do. I like how literally in the summary for it at the end they just say you'll pay him blood, and if you watched any of the trailers for it, you'll know that's pretty true whenever you look at all the gore and just the mayhem that's going on. But it just seems like a very unique game and something I'm excited to get into and just cause as much destruction as possible.
I actually played. Wow, it's been way longer ago than I thought. I was going to say like last year, but no, it's been 3 years ago. I played BioShock for the first time, and I was extremely impressed with it as just how clean the gunplay was, how much fun it was, the powers, everything. The story was really good, and I didn't realize how much was influenced by BioShock until I played BioShock, and so going back, some people might play it and be like, it's it's just kind of boring, nothing new. But the thing is, considering the fact that that game innovated so much as far as the way first-person shooters worked, I think it's stellar. And this game looks like an amazing spiritual successor. Just watching like the powers and again the gunplay and stuff, watching you levitate someone and then just tear them to pieces with your machine gun is a lot of fun to watch. So I'm excited for this. It's not something that I'm like actively looking for, but it's one of those that I will definitely pick up at some point.
It's interesting seeing this game come back, and you're right. You're both right in saying it looks kind of like BioShock, and you're calling it like a spiritual successor. When an actual spiritual successor to BioShock was announced, I think at the Game Awards this past December, it's by the same guy that did BioShock, Ken Levine, his Ghost Story game studio. It's called Judas. It looks even more BioShocky than this, but it's just interesting that we're in this like it's like with Callisto Protocol and Dead Space Remake coming out like right next to each other. Like these ideas inspiring people, and then also the original creators wanting to push it even further, kind of happening at the same time. So it looks interesting. It also looks very pretty, but you're right, very, very, very violent. John,
I actually did not know about Judas, but just the last thing.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
I did not know about it, but I'm just watching the trailer in like a million times speed, and yeah, it does look like like BioShock.
Just like BioShock.
It's like the weird mix of like humor in with like the violence and stuff. Also the animations. I do see that.
It's dark and creepy. John, I do in fact want to talk about Fire Emblem Engage, because I know that game came out yesterday as of the time of this recording, but I also know that Ryder hasn't played it and that your copy hasn't arrived yet. Sorry about that.
Correct. That's fine.
I've put in about 2 hours into it so far, but before obviously I have it, so I'm not anticipating it, but before I started playing it, it was one of my most anticipated games. Fire Emblem is probably like my fourth or fifth favorite series, especially the older ones. Like I really love it. I enjoyed Three Houses. I was really excited for this one to come out, especially because it's paying homage to the past heroes of the series, and so far they've done it without it feeling shoehorned. And also it feels more, I'm not going to speak spoilers, John, don't worry about that. It feels more like a traditional Fire Emblem than Three Houses did. Like Three Houses has like the school setup. And so you show up, you do a tutorial, and they say, okay, choose your army that you're going to play the rest of the game with. And that's fine. Yeah. Like, it did its thing, and it worked out really well for Three Houses, and I grew to really love those characters. But this is, been starting small, and you get a couple people, and you go through some tutorial chapters, and then you start to recruit a couple more that you meet along the way, or people you save decide to join you. And it's very reminiscent of
getting back to the basics.
Yeah, just back to the original stuff. Like even the original Fire Emblem was like that. You start with Marth and a couple knights, and you're kind of on this quest against impossible odds, and you just happen to meet people on the way who either want to help because they also want to fight for your cause, or because you did them some service, or because someone they care about has already joined you and they want to look after that person. And that's what's been happening so far. There's much less downtime and nothingness in between the missions than there was in Three Houses, and there's a ton of systems so far, but none of them seem overly complicated, or unnecessary. Like Three Houses had, I forget what they call it, but you could have like a squadron of troops with you, and you could make them do special attacks on the battlefield, and it just was an extra layer that I always forgot existed. But Engage has a lot of sub-abilities and special abilities that you can do, especially when you are working in tandem with these older characters. But they all make sense, and they're pretty easy to understand. And a lot of them are passive buffs, which to me makes sense, because, this character has this passive buff where he does more damage, but he's less likely to avoid attacks. So these are the kinds of situations that I need to put him in. Whereas other characters get higher speed, but they get a lower resistance to magic. And it's like, okay, well, I don't have to think about crunching numbers and figure out how much damage these special attacks are going to be doing. It's really friendly. The character's really likable. I didn't like the design of the protagonist at first, but I really do like the character, and the voice actor's really good. There's a scene about an hour in where I was playing with my wife, and we were both just like, wow, he can act. Like, he's actually acting right now. This is a really good scene. So
I don't believe you.
okay, that's fine. You don't have to believe me.
That's
But
that's funny.
But yeah, I think you'll enjoy it. It is very anime, maybe a little bit more anime than I would like for Fire Emblem. But Fire Emblem's always been
Yeah.
anime. It's just that anime is more extravagant than ever.
Yeah, so I'm gonna say something controversial here. I'm hoping that it's not another social life simulator. I like the I like the way the original like Game Boy games that I played did, where most of the conversations that your characters had, other than the main ones, and a few side off chances that popped up during the campaign, were the supports. So I'm not saying I want it all removed, but I just think they overdid it in Three Houses, and I noticed that in the reviews, where a lot of people's expectations were, we're going to continue this life simulator and school simulator, please. And then they were sad when it wasn't as much as Three Houses was before.
Yeah.
But I do like the fact that we're gonna minimize that. I'm sure it's still a heavy aspect of the game, but I'm hoping they've minimized it a bit.
It's definitely
And,
in there, but it's definitely way, way less.
Is it less required as well? Because the Three Houses felt more required in order to progress sufficiently.
So I just unlocked
insane difficulties.
I just unlocked the area to like where you kind of explore and talk to the NPCs, and so far nothing has been, none of the content in that area has felt like fluff. But I can't speak to whether you'll need to do things in that area in order to improve your stats and things like that. Like obviously support is there. You can give gifts to people, but I've been increasing my support levels by not doing that, by just battling with the characters. So
and that statement comes from someone that did a single playthrough of Three Houses and really tried to do another one, but could not get into the fact that I had to redo all of those conversations before every single battle, because I was trying to play on the hardest difficulty. I can't remember the name of it, and I just felt like I had to do those things in order to make it through the campaign.
Yeah.
So, and I just couldn't make my way through it. So.
I had the same experience with Three Houses. One day, I really want to go back and experience the other stories, but right now, Engage is really doing it for me. Ryder, you
talking about games with a social aspect?
Yeah.
This is one that I did not expect to have a social aspect, and a game that I did not suspect to really suck me in was Hades. And Hades 2 announcement was at the end of last year, tail end, and might be coming out this year. I don't think we've gotten anything official, but there's been nothing but rumors about it coming out this year. I added it to our list as a most anticipated, and the assumption that it is going to come out maybe later this year. I love the first game. I was just blown away at how good it is. I don't dislike roguelites, but did not think this was going to be something I was just going to be, super interested in. But considering most of the voice actors were amateurs, and I don't mean that like in a negative way as much as I don't think they were really, anyone on the cast was a professional voice actor. It was professional grade, like some of the best voice acting, some of the best writing I've experienced. And even though the gameplay loop was extremely fun, I found myself wanting to continue playing for the moments between the runs where I would come back as Zacharias and get to Medusa, or get to talk to Nyx or someone else, or get to talk to Hades. I was blown away. I'm way past my Greek mythology phase. I think everyone hits that at some point, between the ages of 9 and 15. But still, though, this game hit something for me, and I'm so excited to see the second game. I don't think there's any possibility of this just not being phenomenal, assuming the same people are attached to this.
Yeah, Hades is so good. It's so good. I did the same thing that I was talking about earlier, where I got to the final boss, and then I was like, "That's good." All that was left was the credits. It's fine. I did it. But yeah, I know there's more. Boss. I know there's more. I I do want to go back to it, and this announcement made me want to go back to it. And you're totally right about the social elements. They're way better than Three Houses if you're someone like John, and that's something you're worried about. Like in between the runs, the writing is so good, and the voice acting so good. I'm pretty sure some of the main voice actors, including like Zagreus and maybe also Hades, were just developers on the team. Who,
Like lead writer, I think for the game was Zagreus,
yeah,
and he just so happens to have a beautiful voice and is so good at his delivery. I don't know if he was the lead writer, but he was one of the lead writers, I
mm-hmm.
believe, for the game.
And they've never made a bad game. So Supergiant, and so I don't see them doing that now, and so I'm excited. John, do you have anything to say about this game?
Play
Hades.
Hades.
Yeah.
Play Hades. Do
Yeah.
it.
I've never played it, so these guys are selling me on it though. I'm gonna have to give it a look.
It's worth it. It goes on sale all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's available like on pretty much everything. It's such an easy game to learn and such like a rewarding game to master. And it has multiple different play styles. You know, you're not locked in anything. And every time you think like, oh, I've hit the end of this, there's even more. And also during your runs, there's these awesome like role playing moments and these awesome social elements that you're not expecting. Where you know you might get a buff and you're like, oh, this buff is going to let me do poison damage. But by choosing this poison damage buff, you've now made yourself a closer ally to one of your distant family members who are gods. And you, in the process, might have actually made one of the other gods upset because they're like, why wouldn't he choose my boon?
Yeah.
Am I not good enough for wee little Zagreus? And it's so fun getting to see these opposing these powers. And like I think a lot of Greek mythology doesn't really play up the fact that the gods were at war with each other
so
as much as they were friends. Yeah, they're just petty. I mean, like they're so human in how just emotional they get over the smallest things. Like what? He didn't take my gift. Why did he take his gift instead? I'm going to kill him now. They literally try to kill you for not taking their advice or their help or whatever. So it's so much fun. It's so good. I really can't praise it highly enough.
Oh, I gotta play Hades. I would love to play that sometime before next January. I personally don't think that's gonna happen, but we'll see. It'll be 3 years since the first one came out, so who knows. Speaking of games that are probably not coming out this year, but a man can dream, Hollow Knight Silksong technically does not have a release date. But, this is a big but, it was in
still anticipates it.
It was in Microsoft's E3 presentation last June, or I think it was E3. And before they started the presentation, they said, all the games that you see here will be released in the next 12 months. And Hollow Knight Silksong was one of the big ones that they showed off. And they have not shown anything since then. They didn't put 2023 in the trailer. But if we're to believe Xbox, then we are going to see that sometime within the next 5 months. And I'm so excited because Hollow Knight is my second favorite game of all time after Wind Waker, Legend of Zelda. It was my game of the year 2017, which, if you don't remember, is the year that Breath of the Wild and Mario Odyssey and a bunch of other Horizon Zero Dawn, a bunch of other amazing games came out. Hollow Knight was my game of the year then.
That was a good year.
It was a great year. So I'm really, really excited for the sequel. The world building and the characters and the environments in the Hollow Knight world are so good. It's so interesting. You play as a bug who's exploring a place called Hallow Nest, and you're going underground a lot, but it's not just rocks and dirt. There's cities that the bugs have built. There's a city that's been flooded, and it's been flooded because it rains above ground, and it just so happens that all the water collects through the underground system and pours onto the city. There's jewel mines and poisonous swamps, and there's like a giant snake skin that people revere as like this white dragon that exists down there. It's really fascinating stuff. There's lore to it, interesting characters. The combat is challenging but completely fair. It's the best kind of twitchy 2D combat that I've ever experienced. And the new character in this one is a girl named Hornet. She was a boss in the first game, and now we're playing as her. And she fights with a sewing needle attached to a thread. So there's going to be kind of like grapple hook mechanics and like, you know, kind of Mortal Kombat, Scorpion, I imagine, grabbing enemies, pulling yourself towards them and whatnot. So I'm really excited to see what they can do with the combat and with the movement with that. Because again, the first game was perfect. So this is my most anticipated game by far.
High praise from the Curtis.
Mm-hmm. One day you guys are going to play it. It's been free on every platform, and I've sent it to you every single time. So I know you own it, or you've just been ignoring me completely.
I don't think I do.
You know I don't play 2D platformers that often.
But it's
I don't
it's
either.
more
really
it's a Metroidvania more than a 2D platformer. It's just a Metroidvania with 2D platforming in it, and the platforming feels amazing.
Has the word Metroid in it, which is more often than not a 2D platformer, right?
Metroid Prime.
It's its own genre.
Like to have, yeah. I see your point. It definitely has platforming elements in it, but it's not like a level based. Ooh, let me make these hard jumps. There's like one DLC area where it basically turns into Super Meat Boy, and that's really fun in its own right. But it's more about slowly making your way through, running into a dead end, kind of figuring out like, okay, what's going on here? Oh, I see. I need some kind of item or skill to interact with this, and then you go somewhere else. And it's not like you're constantly running into dead ends, because there's always somewhere else to go that's always really close by. It's, I don't know, if you're not gonna buy it now, then I can't sell it to you better than I'm selling it to you now. It's amazing. I think you would love it, and if you don't, that's okay. But it's really really good.
So I'm gonna cause some controversy here.
Okay.
Hollow Knight or Shovel Knight? Which one's better?
Hollow Knight by far and away. I love Shovel Knight. Shovel Knight's great, but it's a very different game. Shovel Knight is straight up.
Yeah, one carries a shovel.
Yeah. Shovel Knight's like a Mega Man style platformer where you're just like getting basically combat abilities. There's a few other kinds of abilities, but you're going from level to level, left to right, or bottom to top, whichever. And it's great characters in that, great art in that, great music in that. But Hollow Knight's its own thing. When I bought it, it was just this cool looking indie game for $15. I was like, oh, that looks cool. Let me try that. And it ended up being this 40-hour epic that I finished in like a week, just because I was so engrossed with it.
Yeah, that was your full-time job that week.
Mm-hmm. It came out on Switch during June when I was off from school. It was amazing. Okay, I can be done gushing. What do you guys want to gush about now?
All right, so I am going to try to sell you on a game.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to use the exact words that were in the trailer. Okay.
Okay.
Do you want a game that has smooth performance, freedom of play, fast load times, super wide screen? That was it. That's all the trailer said. All right.
Okay.
I mean, I'm down for it, but
So clearly there was gameplay going on behind that, but I just thought those were very weird things to say in a trailer.
Those are called buzzwords.
That was exactly right. I was like, this is weird. All right. So, all right, I have two more from another trailer. All right. What about points of trading, locked labyrinths, spells?
Do you want me to guess what you're talking about?
I really don't even know. There's only like 3 options.
Say, I'm looking at the list. Are you?
More buzzwords from trailers. All right.
Spider-Man 2.
Clearly, it's Spider-Man 2. All right.
Magic.
So what I'm going to tell you, this is a story of a person that is transported to a beautiful and cruel world, and they're given the power to use magic, and they can go around and do whatever they want, and just fight epic bosses.
So you're talking about Forspoken, but why are you introducing it this way?
Why not?
It's much more interesting than the actual game.
You haven't played it. You don't know.
Did you look at the trailers? The game looks beautiful, honestly.
This is not what I thought it was. I was thinking of something else. This does look kind of cool.
This is open world, and you're using magic to attack your enemies, and it just seems like it's going to have epic boss fights, and just overall seems like a very unique and new world to explore. And I believe we talked about this whenever we watched the trailer in one of our other videos. It just seems very just unique, and if you like running around doing cool magic, I don't know too many games that allow you to just use magic in the way that this game is letting you use it. So, highly recommend.
Yeah,
It looks cool.
it looks so cool. I was so excited when they showed this off. It was first announced as Project Athia. It's from the Square Enix team,
Hmm.
and or one of the Square Enix teams. I'm not sure which one to be honest,
And
but
that's the name of the land it takes place.
yeah,
Athia.
it looks great. It like actually visuals look beautiful, but the movement looks really fluid, which to me movement is a huge part of whether I'm going to enjoy a game or not. And the combat looks fascinating. It looks like they're making magic fun because I'm not usually one who uses magic.
Let me
Um,
hit stuff. Let me punch. Let me slice.
it's usually just
Mash.
it's usually just easier to do what you need to do when that's what you're doing. Because a lot of times with magic, there's like limitations on when and how you can use it, which I
Mhm.
totally get is necessary to an extent, but sometimes it gets a little overcomplicated where like, oh, I want to use a really good spell and it used all of my magic, so now I got to
Yep.
attack, but I put all my magic or my all my points into being able to use a really good spell, so now I don't attack very strong with melee weapons.
In this game, I'm fairly certain your only combat items are your magic. So
Yeah,
Mhm.
which that'll be interesting to try out as someone who doesn't usually do that. This this game was supposed to come out last June, I think, and it was like perfect because there was no other game coming out around then. I was super excited to play it. Then they delayed it to the fall of last year. I was like,
and
well,
then they pushed it back
I was like,
again.
well, that's when Pokemon, God of War, and other things are coming out, so maybe I'll find time to play it. And then they push it back again, and it comes out in like 3 days as of this recording. And it's like, well, I'm playing Fire Emblem now. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
See,
It pushed into a rough spot.
you have Fire Emblem, you have the Dead Space remake, and this is right in between those two.
Mm-hmm. It's kind
So,
of crazy.
It might be the only
it's
good game out of them. Who knows?
I mean,
only time will tell.
it might be great. I hope it is. This is probably one that I'll pick up on sale later in the year to play because I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be kind of a big open world kind of game. I think it has some confusion in like selling itself though, because I don't know if you guys have seen, but there's been a couple of trailers that have just been really bad for it, like the
That's
writing.
exactly what that was exactly my
Yeah,
point for that.
that's
That's
a.
the
I'm watching a
trailers are
trailer right now.
rough.
I'm like,
But I've
The
watched,
trailers
it's
are
old.
rough.
but like the actual like raw gameplay that they've shown, where like the cutscenes and stuff and like the combat, it doesn't have that tone at all. Where she's like, "Ooh, well, I guess I'm just this cool girl that drops into this place that's wild." Like she doesn't seem like she comes off like that. So it seems like they like we wrote this commercial, read these lines, and they're like,
I feel
"Okay,
like they put the intern in charge of the trailers.
yeah." So I'm gonna wait, and if the reviews are like, "Yeah, that's the game. That's what she's like the whole time," and it's got that weird kind of like cool. I don't know. It's not cool trying to be cool kind of tone. Then I'll pass. But I'm hoping for a little bit more from this game. So we'll see.
Speaking of magic, Hogwarts Legacy is coming out maybe
Segue, good
this
job.
year. Well, talking about a game where you have to use magic. I mean, it's
Yeah.
potentially the only game where you have to use more magic than Forspoken. Because Forspoken, you can at least kick people
Yeah, but they're
using your
magic
magic.
kicks.
Yeah,
But yeah, there are magic kicks. But
also,
this you
there's
just
no magic sticks in Forspoken. She's using her hands
She
as
has a
her
magic bangle.
bracelets. Yeah, bangles. Bracelets.
Yeah.
um, I'm kind of excited for this. I don't know. I want it to be good. I'm not gonna say I'm worried because if it's not good, it's not something that I'm just really latching on to and hoping for. Like, yes, I need it to be good, but I do want it to be good because I think, um, despite a lot of the very horrible things that J.K. Rowling has said recently and just bad press in general, she's gotten herself wrapped into the pretty much collapse of the whole Wizarding World universe with just how horrible the new movies have been.
Mm-hmm.
I still kind of like Harry Potter, so I want this to be good. I'm afraid of it being like a case of over promising, and I think we've talked about this a little bit on and off. Um, it's an open world RPG, I believe. I don't know how much freedom is going to be because, as far as I can tell, you can join any of the four houses. I don't know if that means there's going to be a lot of redundancy between quests or not, but they're acting like, choosing a house is going to drastically alter stories. There's also going to be freedom, like almost like a moral alignment, whether you want to be a good wizard or you want to be a very, very evil wizard. And I've watched some of the gameplay videos, and surprisingly, the gameplay actually looks good. They've taken a lot of cool things into consideration. Something like Avada Kedavra for Harry Potter fans, the Killing Curse. They've added that into the game, and it's not like lightsaber in Star Wars video games where you just hack and slash, and you're like, I'm not hurting anyone. It took me 15 slices with lightsaber to kill. No, if you use Avada Kedavra, it kills someone. Like, it's automatic, they're dead.
Yeah.
Now they've added like cooldown timers and stuff like that to like help mitigate some of it for the gameplay, balancing. I think that's a really smart decision. And they explain it in World essentially by being like, yeah, if you're using this super powerful curse, you as a 15-year-old wizard can't just do it over and over and over again because it's just going to drain you. So like, yeah, I'm on board with that. They've taken things into consideration. I want it to be good. Again, I think it might be a case of over-promising. We'll see.
I need it to be like Fable's good and bad system, where you grow horns.
Horns,
like a halo.
Or you grow a halo, yeah. That would be hilarious.
I do wonder if it'll affect you physically, because that is a thing in like other Knights of the Republic. As you become more evil, your face pales out and you blood veins start popping out in your face. That's kind of cool, but. You're gonna say something, Kurt?
As a very casual Harry Potter fan, like very casual, like I've finished 5 of the books and then just stopped when I was in high school, and then I've seen half of 3 of the movies, and that's about it. And I saw Fantastic Beasts, so I've seen that whole movie.
Johnny Depp was in that. It's a good movie.
Yeah, sure.
Another controversial figure.
Yeah, let's just bring them all up. There's a lot of promise to this game.
Ezra Miller. There's another one.
Oh my gosh. We gotta stop. We gotta stop.
Keep going. I'm sorry.
There's a lot of, I said promise. There's a lot of potential to this game. This game has the potential to be something really, really, really cool. Will that follow through? That's, for me, it's wait and see. I don't know who's making it actually. I'm not sure who the studio is.
It's a new studio. It's Warner Bros. It's a division of them, I guess, but it's literally Portkey Games. They've created just for Harry Potter content. And
it's being developed by Avalanche as well. Published by Portkey Games.
Okay, gotcha. So I want this to be good. I kind of rewind. Of course, I said I want it to be good. I hope it's good because Harry Potter's on the decline as far as popularity, and the most recent failed. And I know that the studio Warner Bros. Talking about rolling back on Harry Potter entirely, and I don't want that to happen. I want there to be more Harry Potter games because there hasn't been a Harry Potter game in close to a decade. So I want this to be good. I'll just say it and leave it at that.
Can I read you Avalanche Software's last 6 games?
Sure.
Going backwards, okay? So from like latest to oldest. Cars 3, Driven to Win. Disney Infinity, which, to be fair, hard to market, but I heard it's pretty good. Cars 2, Toy Story 3, Bolt, and Hannah Montana Spotlight World Tour.
So they're really good at adaptations, what we're seeing here.
Oh yeah, there you go. That's a really great spin.
Yeah, that's a good way to spin that. Good job. Good job.
I hope it's great, but it's kind of
they also made Tak and the Power of Juju, which are both adaptations.
20 years ago, yeah.
Tak and the Power of Juju on the game.
Those are both a lot of fun. Who knows? They might be the same people.
They also made Mortal Kombat Mythologies Sub-Zero, which is a bad game. If we want to go way, way back, so
maybe they just did the port. Who knows?
I don't know.
The theme song to Attack and the Power of Juju stuck in my head.
They did.
How do you have
Mortal
that?
Kombat
Sing
3, and that's really good though.
Sing it, John.
No.
I don't believe that you know how it goes.
Attack and the Power of Juju.
It's really not that hard.
Attack and the Power of Juju.
Yeah.
I kind of remember it.
All right.
Yeah,
anyways,
specifically stuck in my head now.
I'm not being over hopeful. I want it to be good. And all the early gameplay footage, like I said, it looks good. At the very least, it's a very pretty game, and I think it will be worth playing, even if it's reduced price on sale, just so I can actually play a fleshed out version of Hogwarts and get to see the locations and stuff like that. I think there's still value in that, even if maybe the narrative isn't what I want it to be. Because I mean,
Honestly, yeah.
it's
I
Harry
would just
Potter.
like
The
to.
narrative's not good anyway.
What house are you
I
gonna
would just
choose?
like to walk through Hogwarts and see
Mhm.
the layout, because honestly, that would be cool.
What house are you gonna choose, Ryder?
I don't know if it depends on. I don't know if there's gonna be a personality test or a choice. But I've looked at some of the commons rooms, and it really sucks because Slytherin is just looks so bad. Hufflepuff has one of the most cozy looking ones.
Hmm.
Ravenclaw looks good too. Gryffindor looks good. They all look good, but Slytherin is just like gross looking because it's so dark and damp. There's like no windows.
Yeah,
So anyone but Slytherin.
it's a great environment to race to educate
Little
students.
Nazis.
Let's continue this supernatural train. Hellboy, Web of Wyrd. I just rewatched. Okay, Ryder's excited. I just rewatched the trailer for this. I wrote it down whenever I saw it. I was like, this is one to watch out for. It's mostly cinematic, of walking through some ruins and like a werewolf kind of thing approaches, and then it kind of cuts over the shoulder to Hellboy, and then it looks like to me, at least they're fake, or potentially they're faking it, but it looks like it cuts to gameplay, and it's like a third person kind of action one-on-one game. I don't know. What do you think about it?
Again, roguelike. I
Really?
think roguelike's very interesting for Hellboy. Out of him beating
I missed
these
that
enemies
detail.
down and then being sent back and beating them down and getting sent back. I'm excited for that. It is a fighting game, which I'm not sure about mixing that with roguelite. I'm not sure how like the controls are going to feel. My thumbs do not button mash as well as they used to,
When you say a
and that's
fighting
even
game,
You're old.
do you mean it has like 3D
it's
fighting game controls, or just that it's like combat?
it's combat,
Okay, okay.
but like more of a physical combat, action adventure, God of War-ish, combat. I have no clue how it's actually going to handle, but that's part of my issue with playing God of War is my hands actually get tired way faster now
Yeah.
than they used to. Just be like, over and over again. So I don't know about that, but I love that they are creating this game in the art style of the comics from Mike
It looks
Mignola.
so good.
It does. It looks phenomenal. Like the lighting, the coloring, the shadows, everything. I'm excited for it. I love Hellboy in general. I love dark fantasy. I'm still disappointed that Guillermo del Toro's trilogy wasn't finished. So maybe this will give me some sort of satisfaction.
Hmm.
But I'm really excited. I've been a Hellboy fan for like 20 years or so. So
I just looked it up. The Web of Weird. I didn't know what that was. I assumed it was some kind of Hellboy thing, but I just looked it up, and apparently it's the Web of Weird is a thing that depicts the connection of the fates. And for Vikings, the Web of Weird was a reminder that their deeds not only affect the present but the future as well. So it's just interesting that they're pulling from kind of the idea of what you do affects fate.
mm. That's actually a huge point in the Hellboy series in general.
Well, I didn't know that. I don't know that much about Hellboy. I've seen the first movie, but it looks really good.
I don't want to beat a dead horse for that. This is one of those that like it looks fun. We don't really have anything to go off of. I like Hellboy, so I'm good to go on that one.
Okay. Let's talk about For the King 2 that John just added to the doc.
Absolutely. So,
We're supposed to be
this-
scratching this off, not adding more. What are you doing?
It's only been
Well-
2 hours. What's your issue?
well, the
Hasn't been that
problem
long
was
yet.
see, we have a list there, and I only added a few to it because there's already a bunch on it. But I just had to talk about this game because it does have a release date of 2023, and I absolutely love the first game. So, For the King, you are a group of farmers and peasants that are tasked with saving the kingdom because sadly your king has passed away, and you must find your way through the weaving plot and determine who exactly has killed him and try to stop the curses from overtaking the kingdom. And so it is a roguelike where like I don't remember.
Does
which
not
one it
matter.
is. Anyway,
Roguelike and roguelike are both roguelite and like are both. terms,
things.
but
Okay. Well, anyway,
Let's
so
not get specific. It's fine.
the whole point of me saying that was that you're going to die. Your characters, you can have up to 3 in the first one, and ultimately you will die in your adventure. The whole game is made around the fact that you will not succeed every time, and upon building upon that, you can unlock new equipment and stuff to make your next runs easier, and then you learn how to play. You get better at it. So this is going to be building upon that, and they're changing it up. Instead of 3, you now can have 4, and it also is going to allow you to do online co-op with up to 4 instead of 3, which is really what I wanted, because 3 is just a weird number to work with. And they're changing up the combat now, so you have, instead of the turn-based combat just being at the forefront, where you have kind of like a Final Fantasy-esque combat system. Instead, it's going to be with a front row and a back row, which I think is another combat system that Final Fantasy used later on. But I still believe it's going to be turn-based, but there's going to be more strategy involved in where you place your characters as well. And yeah, this game is low poly design. However, just doing one of these fights and just watching a giant orc just ragdoll over after you hit him with a club with a book on the end of it, just kind of just really shows you what exactly this game is going to be about. And ultimately, this time you're going to be taking down a tyrannical queen with your party and trying to save the kingdom once again from another issue or another calamity.
Nice.
So I have the first game and I've had it for years and have kept on saying, yeah, I'm going to play it. I'm going to play it. I'm guessing it's worth playing.
It absolutely is worth playing as someone who has a lot of hours into it.
I was going to ask
tell you that exact number.
who the developer is, but Iron Oak Games, but I can't
Yes.
I can't quickly find what else they've made. That might have been their first game.
Update, yes, Ryder. As someone who's put 70 hours into this game, I highly recommend it.
Oh my gosh, that's a lot of hours.
So, yes, it's made to fail, but it's great to play with other people or just solo. You can do a solo run. You control all the characters. So you move around the map like it's a board game, and then you have so many moves you can do. And as you move around, random events happen, and you also have quests you can get from each of the towns. And yeah, so now it looks like they're making the towns more sprawling instead of just one space, and just really changing the look and feel of the game. And they're making very positive moves in every aspect that I've seen so far.
I looked up some images. I do remember this game. I haven't played it yet, but I do have it. It looked cool.
It sounds like all 3 of us can play now.
All right. Someone put Starfield on this list, so talk to me about Starfield because one of y'all is excited about it.
I put it on there.
I didn't think it was me.
Anticipation versus excitement are two different things. Like, this has been such a long time coming, and it was announced 4 or 5 years ago now, and per the man himself, Mr. Bethesda, Todd Howard,
Toddy boy.
He acted like it's been in development for even longer than that, so maybe close to a decade of development at this point.
It's ridiculous,
and it's postponing Skyrim. Not Skyrim, goodness.
Skyrim 2.
Skyrim re-release number 12. It's postponing Elder Scrolls 6, which makes me genuinely curious. Like, they have to either just be really dumb or have tons of just confidence in this project to have such a massive cash cow that they're putting off because this new IP is, in their opinion, worth playing and just absolutely phenomenal. The biggest thing they've ever done. And as far as gameplay videos, whatnot, I'm not excited just looking at that.
But I'm in it so far.
There's not enough in it, and like the environments are kind of bland, and again, over-promising syndrome. And I think No Man's Sky, when they're talking about how many planets there are and everything like that, I'm like, that just really scares me. Like, I've heard this before.
Yeah, it's hard to compare those two games just because they're both related to space and just over-promising with their thousands of worlds you can go to, and just all the aspects that they're trying to sell you on, and then everyone's just, don't do it again, please.
Well, I mean, he has a track record. Todd Howard does, of, I'm not going to say lying, because that maybe implies that it's intentional as much as it's a I think just over promising. Maybe I mean I think some of the things maybe were in original builds of the game, or they were intending to add for Skyrim or whatever game in particular, and then the further in development they get, they're like, oh, realistically we can't do that. Or someone's computer might be able to run this, but can home consoles really handle this? Does the disc that we're shipping out with for like older 360 games or something like that, PS3 games, can they really fit this much storage on there? All these things are considerations that made them have to take out some of the features and roll it back to hit deadlines. So I'm not going to call it a lie, but again, there's a track record for overpromising at Bethesda. They have the resources now of Microsoft backing them. They're already a huge company, and now that they kind of have that Microsoft money, I mean, yeah, maybe. But I don't know. I want this to be good, and I want it to come out so I can get my Elder Scrolls 6. But
Yeah, honestly, yeah.
that's about all I got on that.
2030, you'll get Elder Scrolls 6.
That would be very
You're
soon
here
for
for
Elder Scrolls 6. It feels like at this point. I'm not big on sci-fi in general. Like I'm very much a fantasy.
Wrong.
I mean, that's fine. Like we can have our opinions, but I like Star Wars. Fine. There have been fantasy things that I've liked. Like I love.
That's fantasy. That's space fantasy.
Sure. Maybe space games is what I'm looking for. I liked Mass Effect quite a bit, but when they announced that their next game was a sci-fi space epic, I was like, oh, okay. Can you just make Elder Scrolls 6 instead? And I'm happy that they're getting to work on something different because I'm sure the developers want to be able to, stretch their legs a little bit and do other things.
Space is the future.
But
Fallout, Elder Scrolls, Fallout.
Yeah.
Please give me something else.
I get it. It's fine. But when they announce, like, yeah, there's hundreds or however many worlds you can go to, I was like,
like 1,000 or something.
Yeah, I'm
I
like,
heard it.
oh.
No Man's Sky. That's exactly why
I was like, I don't want that even more now. So I don't know. It's gonna come out on Game Pass, so I'll probably play it since I'll just already have it. But I'm not looking forward to it. But we'll see. Bethesda usually releases very good games. Fallout 76 wasn't great at launch, but apparently it's pretty good now. Fallout 4, a lot of people liked, a lot of people didn't. So we'll see where this one lands.
Fallout 4.
I think it's a good game. I think it just was not an RPG.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that made a lot of people upset for good reason. There's way more illusion of choice in that game than any other game they'd released up until that point. So
we're circling back because I talked about how much I like building, and then I just told you Fallout 4 was a good game. So now you know why I think so.
All right, while we're talking about Microsoft Studios games, let's talk about Minecraft Legends. Who put that on there?
I put that on there. I like Minecraft. That's it. That's literally all I.
That's all it is.
Yeah,
do you like that style of gameplay?
The gameplay, what little I've seen, does look fun. I'm interested in the concept. Really, the animation and art style is crazy good for a spin-off Minecraft game. I'm interested.
You say that like Minecraft isn't one of the most lucrative properties in the world at the moment.
I mean, it is, but it's also like Pokemon. I mean, Pokemon's one of the most lucrative.
You got me there.
It's like they don't have to,
Yeah, you're right.
Like
you're right.
They could release a steaming box of cow turds, and people and my fiance is yelling. They do. I'm not talking about Pokemon right now. but they could just release whatever they wanted, and people would buy it. People specifically for their children, or children would buy it. I mean, who knows? I might buy it too. But I don't know. It looks fun. I really like seeing little like foxes and badgers or whatever it is follow you around. There's never been badgers in Minecraft before, so that's kind of cute.
So, correct me if I'm wrong. This game is going to be kind of like a Warriors game, like Fire Emblem Warriors, like one of those.
I'm not 100% sure. I know that you're rallying groups of enemies together and like taking control of a map, but I don't know much more than that.
Okay. I think of more like Dragon Quest Builders is what I kind of comes to my mind, which is another really phenomenal game that I did not think was going to be good. But Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I could kind of see that.
Honestly, Fire Emblem Warriors type games, I can't remember anymore off the top of my head. That's why I'm using that one as an
Dynasty
example.
Warriors.
Yes,
Dynasty
they're
Warriors.
they're normally not my cup of tea. I've played maybe one, but this, like you had said, the art style and just all the uniqueness of this, and of course it's Minecraft,
Mm.
just kind of makes me want to play it, even if that's the route they're taking. But it, like you had said, I'm sitting here watching the trailers again because it's been a while since I've seen it. It doesn't seem like it's going to be more of that route, but it does look enjoyable, and it'd probably be something I pick up, honestly.
That's another one that's
It's
coming
fun
to
watching
Game
be like
Pass.
zombies go.
Zombies away!
It's another one coming to Game Pass probably. So well, I mean almost definitely. So I'm excited to check it out whenever that happens.
Now,
I don't
real
really have
talk,
much else on that one, but it looks cool.
do you think there'll be a Java edition and a console edition like
Oh.
all the other ones?
A Bedrock and a
Yeah.
Bedrock Minecraft Legends.
Yeah.
I really hate that they can't see more of your cats running around the edges of the camera on the recording.
It's okay.
It's a good thing you can't see the birds because you'd also hear the birds.
Let's talk about Mina the Hollower. I'm super excited for Mina the Hollower. It's by Yacht Club, which is the developers of yeah, that's like just out of frame. It's really funny how
That's
just,
probably for the best.
it was like it was literally just the tail and the head like flopping back and forth like in the corner of the frame. Someone came and kidnapped the cat for the viewers.
Not again.
Floating kitty.
Mina the Hollower is the next game by the Shovel Knight team. It's the first non-Shovel Knight game that they're developing.
Wait a minute. You had the opportunity to segue to this earlier when we talked about Shovel Knight and you didn't?
Yeah, I dropped the ball there. I'm sorry, guys. Hope you can
Just
forgive
kidding.
me. But you play as a little mouse, and it looks like it plays like a Game Boy Color Zelda game, like Link's
That's
Awakening.
exactly what this looks like.
The color
And-
palette.
But it's got like the aesthetic and the world of like a Castlevania.
This looks like Mystic Quest art style as well on the Super Nintendo.
It looks fascinating, and you know that you play as a mouse with a whip, and you're like, oh, that's really cute, and it's like, oh, it's a little sprite, yeah. And then I saw a trailer today for it where it's like, oh my gosh, what do they call it? Mina the Hollower skin something. What is
This
it?
does remind me of Link to the Past, like very much so.
I don't remember the exact name of it, but there was some new information about it, and it was called like an enemy was chasing you like a boss, and that was called like the skin scraper or something. And they're like, if he catches you, he'll scrape all your skin off while you scream. And it's like, I'm sorry, what did you just say? This game about this mouse with a whip is okay, sure. So it's gonna have these crazy dark like gothic themes with it, and I say gothic because of like the design of it, not just because it's spooky. But I'm really excited for it.
So when I read the title for this game, Mina the Hollower, I was like, the first thing that came to mind because I had no idea what this game was about. I thought it was gonna be like you are Mina, who is a hollower in a hollow in Dark Souls.
Yeah,
And this is your quest.
it'd be wild.
It's about becoming more hollow.
Yeah,
Can you take me hollower?
exactly. So this heavily reminds me of A Link to the Past, and that's the only Zelda game I've actually finished. So this looks very promising.
It looks super good. This is another one where I'm like, is it actually going to come out in 2023? Because right now the release date is December 2023, which just means we're aiming for 2023, but it might not
We'll see
happen.
what happens.
So we'll see.
This is one of those games that like I really want to be excited for because it does look so much fun. I love the art style. I love the colors. The gameplay looks like a lot of fun. It's one of those things that I wish I had more time for because it's not in my immediate like peripheral. Like I look at it, I'm like, I think this looks fun, but it's not something I'm going to spend the time to play.
Sure.
Because there's so much else that is I know I will like, you know.
Right.
If it helps, I can't imagine it's going to be very long because I got the treasure trove over Christmas break, and I played through 2 of those games, and they were both like 4 hours long. And Yacht Club also published a game couple years ago, 2021, I think, called Cyber Shadow, and I think that game was like 8 or maybe 10 hours. Like, they don't make very long games. They just, what is there is phenomenal. So I'm really excited to check it out. Next,
Absolutely.
Berserk Boy. Is that you, Ryder, or was that John?
I guess that was I. That was probably one of those that I added when I was looking for games for we do. I don't think we've discussed it. We do a fantasy league
Fantasy
for
Game
drafting
League.
video games, and this is probably one of those that I found when I was like digging for games and was like, wow, this looks like a lot of fun.
Wow.
It looks like a Mega Man kind of game.
I thought Joe would have picked this one and put it on there.
And maybe I'm looking at it. No, I didn't. So I guess this is actually Joe. So I was watching the trailer and I was like,
all right.
This one's for you, Joe, even though you didn't join us for the recording.
Joe, tell us about it.
It looks cool. It looks like a Mega Man kind of game where you're beating bosses and getting power-ups. So, all right, moving on.
Joe, this looks bad. You picked the bad
It
game.
looks bad? I think it looks fine.
It
looks
like a Mega
bad.
Man. Exactly like Mega Man.
Berserk Boy, I think it looks great. I wish you a successful launch. One of you guys wants to play Avatar Frontiers of Pandora.
I put that on there because I am genuinely curious.
Does it have a release date?
This year, I thought it was like April this year or something like that.
Does it? I thought it was
maybe
just
it got pushed back.
Vaguely, potentially this year.
I might be lying entirely. No, just 2023. Okay, okay.
Oh, well, it says it on there at least. So.
I don't know. I'm excited. It's Ubisoft / Massive Entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
Massive Entertainment made some Tom Clancy games, and they're pretty consistent in quality. They're not necessarily for everyone. There hasn't been a whole lot of gameplay shown, but I, until recently, was one of those Avatar naysayers. And when Avatar did a re-release back in like September or so, I went and watched it in 3D and was actually like blown away at how much I enjoyed it. I think it's a very, pretty normal story. But then I went and watched the second movie, and it completely justified the existence of the first movie, where the first movie feels like a pretty safe introduction to this very, very alien world, because the second movie is one of the most like immersive experiences I've ever felt in cinema. It is alien as the world feels. But by the time you're really into the movie ends, and you're like it feels weird coming back to the real world because it's so immersive. And so I'm very excited. Yeah, exactly. I'm very excited to see what they do with the world that they've been given. It's very interesting to me that, of course, money, but it's interesting that James Cameron is trusting someone else with his baby. I'm curious what this is going to be. I love jungles, so I'm kind of here for the jungles. I love blue, and there's lots of blue on these people, so I don't really have anything in particular I'm excited about, other than, again, Avatar.
Have they shown gameplay? Like, what kind of game is it going to be?
I have no clue.
Okay,
but
just
it
the
looks
license.
First person.
All they had was a first looks trailer.
This first looks trailer from like 2021, and it looks first person based on the little bit of gameplay that looks like is there. I'm honestly not even sure.
They may not even know yet.
There's no world where this comes out this year. There's no world.
I think, again, kind of like the Harry Potter thing, where it's probably a something that might be too overly ambitious, or it might come out and it's just like an easy cash grab. It's going to be like one or the other. Like either completely commit to making this an extremely immersive, massive open world game, or they're just going to try and capitalize on the fact that there's Avatar movies again for the first time in 12 years.
My guess is they're going to release this before the second one.
The second one's already out, John.
The third one?
I meant like the newer ones they're making. Yeah,
the second sequel, right?
Yeah.
I was just thinking because they're doing a new trilogy.
Yeah. No,
right?
we're just
like the second one of the trilogy.
We're just being jerks. Yeah. You're fine.
I'm treating it like Star Wars now. Which trilogy?
It looks good, like just visually, but that's more to the design of the world. as someone who hasn't seen either of the movies, I kind of watched the first one in high school, like in class. But when you watch a movie for the first time in class, you don't actually watch it. Um, it looks really pretty. It's being developed by Ubisoft, and there's wonderful people working at Ubisoft. They haven't made a big open world game just a big game besides like Mario and Rabbids that I have been interested to play in several years at this point.
I get, yes.
Okay, cool.
And
Next game is
Assassin's Creed is part of that, and I think that as far as gameplay loop, I think there's a lot to be improved on from the gameplay standpoint. But as far as the open world standpoint itself, I haven't played the Viking Age
Valhalla.
game, Valhalla. I don't know why I couldn't remember that. But Origins and now I can't even remember the one set in the Greek Odyssey. Thank you. Both of those, as a huge history buff, like seeing Egypt like meticulously recreated.
Yeah, that's really cool.
And same thing with the Greek archipelago. Just crazy seeing how much effort they put into that. And I mean, the level of detail in their games is so astonishing that when Notre Dame burned a few years ago, the people who were actually rebuilding Notre Dame literally used blueprints, 3D models that Ubisoft had from making their Assassin's Creed game. Assassin's Creed, was it Revolutions or something like that?
Revelations.
It's whichever one is set like in France. Yeah, it's Revolution. No, Unity. Haha. Anyway, their plans were so detailed they literally used their 3D models to rebuild Notre Dame after its fire, which I think is just, again, like a testament to how much effort they put into crafting these worlds. Even if, again, I think the gameplay a lot of times can be very stale, very boring. The story is not interesting. I love just running around Egypt and like climbing to the pyramids and seeing that, like, wow, they actually left like this pyramid has a gold cap on it.
Yeah, it's
during
really
this
cool.
time period that would have happened. Like, wow, these statues in Alexandria are actually painted and they're not just white marble because they actually painted their statues. That all that type of stuff's really, really cool to me. So I'm excited for that standpoint, that if they commit to that same level of detail world building, it'll be a very pretty game, even if it's not a fun game.
Sure, 100%. Let's talk about Antonblast real quick. Antonblast is an indie game that's it looks like directly ripped from like the old Wario Land games. And Ryder, as you've talked about endlessly, you're a huge fan of the Wario Land games, so I'm gonna let you take it from here.
Look at 2D platformer.
Yeah.
It's a great genre, John. You should try it out.
So look, I'm not like a huge 2D platformer guy either, but Wario Land is so much fun, and I will say a large part of that is Wario, because he's just kind of funny in his own,
weird way,
gross way. Yeah, but the gameplay in this looks like it's just, honestly, it's almost a ripoff. Like I've said this when we were doing our drafting, that it even uses some of the same sound effects. At least it sounds like. But the gameplay is what makes Wario Land. As much as I think Wario is funny, the gameplay is what makes those games so much fun. Wario Land favorite. I played some of 3, but 4.
4 is very.
It's
very
one of
good.
my favorite like platformers. Period.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very excited for this. I didn't even know about it until our friend, I think Joseph, told me about it. So Kurt, I think you played some of. Was it Wario Land 4 as well? You had it like on your 3DS?
I played the original Game Boy Advance one back in the day. I beat it a couple times. It's great. I played a little bit of Wario Land 2 on my 3DS, I think. And then I played Shake It on the Wii, and that one's also very good. So recommend that one. I'm very excited. I love that these old series and gameplay styles that have been abandoned by developers who are focusing on just different things, or developers who don't even exist anymore. I'll be honest, I'm not sure who developed the Wario Land series. It's really exciting to see other people take up that torch. What'd you say, John?
Nintendo.
Thank you, John.
Speaking
Very
on
helpful.
Nintendo, what worries me about projects like this is them potentially being canceled. Even though character design, it does not look similar. I do worry that
I think
the
unless
gameplay is so
they're
similar.
literally ripping audio from the old games, which I just can't imagine they would not think that through enough. Nintendo wouldn't have a grounds, like you can't well, people can, because the people who developed the Shadow of Mordor series have copyrighted the Nemesis system, which is
That was very interesting.
very limiting to what games can do eventually. But Nintendo doesn't have the rights to, a charge dash or a shoulder bash, or, and the character is similar to Wario, but it's not like they took Wario and made his overalls orange, it's close, but it's not exactly like that, it's not exactly like that.
Pretty close. It's pretty close.
It looks fun.
Nintendo, please don't watch this video because I don't want this project to be canceled. It looks like a lot of fun.
I'm gonna tweet this video out and tag Nintendo. Be like, check out 1 hour and 45 minutes and see how that game looks.
Cease and desist letters went out yesterday. Don't worry.
Thank you for bringing this to our attention. Press A to talk. Hey, which one of you guys is excited about Aliens: Dark Descent?
I put that on there, but I think John would. Are you saying you?
I assumed it was John, but he's looking saying not me.
Yeah, not me.
No, I put it on. I think the rest of the list is on. No, actually, we've gone through most of mine, so that's good.
I'm taking a look. I took a look earlier. Mm-hmm.
I'm excited for this because I love the Aliens universe. I want more.
What kind of game is it?
It is a RTS.
Oh,
so unfortunately, Kurt, you might not like it.
Nope.
But
it's an RTS. I did not get that from the trailer.
How John feels about 2D platformers, I feel about RTS.
I might actually like this then.
See?
I think that I've never even considered having an Alien game with like an RTS, backdrop, or vice versa, I guess. But it looks like a lot of fun, based on the little bit of gameplay showcase there's been. I can't get enough of the Alien universe. I love RTS games, so yeah, that's really all I have to say about it. There's not a lot to go off of at the moment, but it looks fun, so I'm here for it.
There wasn't much.
I was watching the trailer, and it never that I saw went to like an RTS angle. Yeah. I was like, is this like isolation style or what is it? So it's very. I think it's really cool that I love when they expand licensed games into unique genres.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think that's the right way to do it, instead of just making a 3D action game. Like sometimes that's great, but like the John Wick game that came out several years ago, John Wick Hex by oh my gosh, Mike Bithell Studios, was a like hex based tactical shooter where like kind of like Super Hot, where when you moved, the enemies would also move, and you were moving around this hex-based board. Hello, cat. But anyway, I'm very excited for you guys. I still want to watch Alien with you, Ryder, because I've actually never seen it. I've seen Spaceballs, and there's an Aliens parody at the end of that.
It's close enough.
Somewhere in that.
Close enough.
It's close enough. Same thing.
Actually, they even got the same actor. It's John Hurt in both scenes. So and it's funny because he even says, he's like, "Not again."
That's really funny.
That's the only good part of that movie, honestly.
Oh, I'm gonna talk about Shumi Come Home. Shumi Come Home is a 3D platformer. So John's gonna hate it, but you play a Shumi who's a little mushroom dude, and you're lost, and you're trying to find your way home. And so you're exploring these nature environments, and it starts out with just like a forest, but then if you watch the latest trailer they released, you're going through a forest, and then you get inside a person's house, and that's cool. And you go underground, and there's, kind of some junk that's been buried down there, and that's cool. And then you eventually end up in, like, the pipes of the house. And so it's like a water area with all these rusted pipes and everything. So, again, you're a small character in a big world, and you're exploring, but it looks really creative. It's got a really cool cel-shaded art style.
And it has capybaras.
And apparently it has capybaras. I don't know that I was aware of that one.
World's largest rodent.
But It looks super good. It's got like an old school aesthetic to it. That's true. It is the world's
It
largest
is.
rodent.
I had to think about it. I was like, is that? I don't remember. But yeah, that sounds right. Yeah.
And there's also a it has settings, and instead of making the graphics sharper, it makes the graphics worse, and because you can make it look more and more old school, like grainy and
Pokemon.
stuff. And I'm pretty sure the lowest setting is all caps, just yo, I can't see anything. It's just you really can't. It's just a blob of colors on the screen, but it looks really really cute. I've been following the developer on Twitter. Let me shout out that developer. Some Humble Onion. I've been following them on Twitter and watching the game like progress over the last year and a half, and it looks really good. And supposedly it's going to come out this year. And I love a good 3D platformer, and I love a good indie game. Mushrooms. So I'm excited. And mushrooms. Mushrooms are great.
Mushrooms are great.
All right, all we've got is big guns left, and before we talk about those, let's talk about Spider-Man 2.
Didn't even see that one.
I am so excited for Spider-Man 2. Anybody else excited?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm also very excited. I still need to play Miles Morales, and I will say that some of my excitement has been flushed down the toilet because I don't like the new face. I think we talked about it before.
Yeah, we have. I know we talked about that on the recording.
Person, but yeah, I don't know if we talked about it on recording. I just don't like it, and I know some people do, but Homeboy does not look like a 25-year-old grad student. He looks like younger than Miles, and it's really weird seeing him talk to a high school student and like, I'm going to give you advice now. And I'm like, no, dude, you need to go back to chemistry. Like, but I am excited. Ultimately, my fiance watched me play that one, and she loved that game. It's so much fun. The original, Marvel Spider-Man. I am excited to play Miles Morales. I bought it actually a week or two ago, and I'm planning on getting into it sometime this year before 2 comes out.
That's another short one. Miles Morales, I think, is like 12 hours long. I got the platinum trophy for it, and it took me less than like 20 hours for sure. Yeah, John, did you ever play the Spider-Man on PS4 or the remaster?
No, superhero movies and games aren't really my thing.
That's fair. If you ever feel like dipping your toes into it, then you choose between Batman and Spider-Man, and if you choose Spider-Man, this is the one to do it. It's a phenomenal game. It does open world well, where moving through the world feels great.
So fluid.
It's so fluid. And they pay attention to just every little thing. Like the actor that plays Spider-Man, and the same thing with Miles and Miles Morales. They had them record all of their lines that they say going through the city twice, because when they're just walking around or sitting on a rooftop, they're talking like normal, like we are now. And when they're swinging through the air, they're like, Aunt May, now it's not really, like they're like exasperated, like they sound like they're flying through and trying to hold a conversation like a normal person, and it switches back and forth so smoothly. The animation is cool. Great.
When you like crest, like you're like climbing up a building, and you're like, MJ, I really think that we can talk about this. And he gets like on top of the building. He's like, would it be cool if I come over after? And you're like, what?
Yeah,
like,
they blend it.
It's so seamless.
The story was really good, like some really emotional moments, and
I cried.
Yeah, and same thing with Miles Morales. Like, really, they take a no-name villain that no one's ever heard of and make it a good story. And we've already seen that Spider-Man 2 is going to have Venom in it, and I'm not going to spoil anything, but I'm very interested to see their interpretation of Venom, based on how they interpreted characters from the first game. And it looks so good, and the combat was amazing. I think they took the Arkham style combat and actually improved it, because the Arkham combat's great, but when Batman's like flying back and forth hitting people, it's like, okay, he's the greatest fighter, but it's fantastical, which is fine. It's a superhero game, but with Spider-Man, it totally makes sense, because he's like shooting webs and like yanking himself like across the map, like literally to another rooftop, and punching a dude and then zipping himself back to punch a different dude, and it's so fluid and so amazing.
Gameplay looks very satisfying, and like learning new powers and stuff is a lot of fun. Like new powers, combos, getting like new web types. It all just feels very fluid, and it's a lot of fun. it's also just the narrative is good.
Yeah.
It's a good story.
I'm really interested how they're going to balance having two Spider-Men in this one.
Spider-Man.
Because they've shown them that they're both in the game, and as far as I'm aware, they haven't mentioned it being co-op in any capacity. So I don't think it's a matter of you play as both at the same time with a friend. I think it's you'll trade off, and I'm curious how they'll, is it going to be Peter's story, and he's like, "Hey Miles, I need your help to do this," or are both of them going to be going through things? Or are they just going to be together and they're like arbitrarily deciding, or maybe you decide at the beginning of a mission who you're going to play as? I don't know.
This town's not big enough for the two of us, Miles.
No, see, you gotta
Get
play.
out of here.
You gotta play Miles Morales because the town is big enough for both of them, Ryder. That's the whole point. They made a whole game about that.
I refuse.
It looks really good. That's probably after Silk Song, maybe Tears of the Kingdom. Again, they just haven't shown me anything that has made me feel more excited. I'm probably most excited for Spider-Man 2. John, you should play the first one, but you do you, man. You got too many RTS and horror games to play. I get it. All right,
Exactly.
we're wrapping up. We're at the end. There's 2 more games to talk about: Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and Final Fantasy 16. Let's talk.
What should we talk about first?
Let's talk about Rebirth first, because 16 has a definitive release date, and that one's actually going to come out this year, and Rebirth is probably not. But one of y'all wants to talk about it for this year, so let's do it.
It wasn't John, because
It
John.
wasn't me. I still got to finish the remake of 7.
So that the box of steaming cow turd I was talking about earlier, that's John.
Hey,
No.
John does not like Aerith.
Oh, he's just
That's
putting
okay.
you on blast there.
I have no clue if anyone will watch to this point in the video or watch this video at all.
That's true. Yeah,
But
that's true.
If you are watching this, I want you to know that John does not like Aerith.
You should dislike this video because John does. No, don't do that. Actually,
Let us know down in the comment section why I'm wrong.
there it is. It took 2 hours, but we
There
got
you
there.
go. Share it with your buddies so they can make fun of John.
Of course.
I am so excited for this. I have to be careful because my fiance is again like right in the other room and she doesn't know anything
Yeah, no
about
spoilers.
this.
No
When
spoilers.
And I don't
completely
either.
blind.
Yeah.
I just leave it at, this is a reimagining. Final Fantasy VII Remake is a remake. It's a reimagining, but it's pretty one-to-one in a lot of ways. Stretches the story, it's like really like a 5 to 8 hour area, depending on how tedious you want to be, how lost you get in the original game. They stretch it up to a 4-hour game. But most of that's, side quests and stuff, and it doesn't really have much of an effect on the main story. But in the last 3 hours or so of that game, it completely switches up the narrative of the original and leaves a lot of things kind of hanging. And I don't know where the story's going to go from here.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's going to follow a lot of the same beats, but I don't know if it's going to be as close. I don't know if it's going to kind of be out of order. I don't know if the same people are going to be alive at the end of the story. And I'm very excited to see what happens. I have nothing but excitement. I know a lot of people are turned off by Remake because of the differences, but I'm just glad to be seeing Midgard and the world itself. I'm trying to think of it. Gaia is the name of the world, I think. Just in 3D, glorious 4K animation, and there's some other issues I have, but ultimately I'm so excited. This is my childhood, being re-experienced for me. I cried my eyes out playing Remake multiple times, and my fiance Larkin just sat there and she got emotional watching me. Getting to experience something I never thought was going to happen. So I'm excited to see how this plays out.
Yeah, the cast of characters is amazing. I'm really excited to spend more time with them. I'm excited to meet some of the new some of the characters from the original Final Fantasy VII that come along later, and see their interpretations of them, because so far everything's been great. The performances have been great. And Ryder, you talked a lot about the story and seeing all that remade in this the new engine with the new graphics, the new scale. I'm also really excited to see what they're doing with the gameplay, because I think Final Fantasy VII Remake is one of the best playing games just that I've ever played. It probably has top 2 or 3 like combat systems in any game that I've ever played.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just really phenomenal. It's so fluid switching between the characters. Every character fulfills a role. None of it feels redundant, and also no character feels one note, which is very impressive.
Each character has its own like essentially skill tree
mm-hmm.
that you can level up to. You're not locked into one playstyle with any individual character.
Yeah, and you can customize the weapons of all of them, right? Not just the main character. You can
Yep.
customize the weapons of all of
Yeah,
them,
all of
and
them.
the weapons have unique buffs and skills, and there's really a lot to it, but it's not overly complicated. Like when you pull up the skill trees and stuff, you're not just staring at just a wall of information that would take a lot of time and energy to discern. Because when that happens with me, I'm just like with God of War Ragnarok, that kind of happened with me. It was like unlock the ability to throw your axe harder. It's like got it, and then the next skill was like if you throw your axe harder while evading to the left at the perfect time, then you will switch stances and then you can fall. I'm like, no, I don't.
Mm-hmm.
I'm good.
I will not remember that.
The combat's great in that game too, but I'm just like, I literally never got like the skill tree splits like this on that, and I literally went one skill and then went all the way down the other side because I just like I'm never gonna use that or anything relevant to it, so it's fine. I'm really excited for this game though.
The another thing with this, I kind of forgot, which
You're
I think
fine.
is very important. Um, the open world aspect kicks in at this point in the original game,
Yes.
and I'm very curious how they're going to do that as well. Because as much as I love me a good open game, I think it might be better to have a hub world or like not hub world, but kind of hubs
Mm-hmm.
that are widely explorable
Yeah.
rather than having a fully open world, because I feel like that might detract from the real meat and potatoes of the rest of the game, if that makes sense.
You can say whatever you want about stories in open world games, but you just don't have the ability to finely craft the way a story is told in an open world game the way you do in a more linear game. Just like strictly because of how the player is proceeding through the world. You know, like you can do your best. You can make events in these two cities kind of tie together. So depending on which one they go to, they might get a different version of it first, but they can still put the pieces together. But you know, it's like watching a movie. Like that is a more effective way to tell a story than a video game, generally speaking. And so movies are very linear. Having the story be very linear in the first game, I think, was a big part of why it was so successful and why those characters were so likable, because they were able to meticulously plan the series of events that led the characters to where they were going.
And I think that there are like I beat this dead horse, but like Witcher 3 is I think a phenomenal example of a massive game that has an amazing narrative tied to it. But I will say that a complaint that I hear frequently from people who are not prepared going into it is that it's too big, and where that comes into play is it's too big to keep up with the main narrative,
yeah,
because every small side story is amazingly crafted, written, did everything like that. But some people don't have that attention span and they just want to play the main story. But sometimes with a game like that, it might force you to go through all the additional effort. Like some people I just want to play the main story 40 hours, 30 hours, maybe.
yeah.
But really, it's a 200-hour game if you want to stretch it out. And some people don't want to have to do that. And sometimes you might have to just to get up to like a reasonable level to be able to beat the next boss.
And I personally am one of those people who, the original Final Fantasy remake was like 40, 45 hours. And I did most of the side quests, but there's nothing that takes forever and ever.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'd say it's about a 40-hour game. And then if you make it open world and add the exploration and the side quests that an open world necessitates, then, I mean, what, are we stretching it to a 60, 80-hour game? I don't know that I really want that.
I think that's even conservative, because in the original game, this was the largest portion of that game. Which again, that's just the pacing, world building. Everything's going to shrink and expand in some places to make this narrative tighter. So I'm excited. I'm curious.
John, are you going to finish the first one before this one comes out?
Yes.
Promise.
I'm finishing Final Fantasy VII Remake this year. It's on
Okay.
my
Okay, he said
list.
it. What it?
We'll hold you to this.
What do we get if you don't?
I made a list. Like I made a list of stuff I need to finish this year.
I make a list of things I need to do constantly, and there's a lot of things that don't
Through
get
my
scratched
list,
off.
though.
I have on my list. There's a little bullet point that says make a list.
That's fair.
I haven't done it yet.
I also told myself I'd read some books this year, and I'm over halfway through one.
Wow! Look at he reads, guys. Look at him. All right.
I know what the words mean now.
Let's talk about a Final Fantasy game that's coming out this year. Final Fantasy 16.
That is more likely.
That is confirmed to come out this year. That they have put a release date on it that says 2023.
Disclaimer: Final Fantasy VII Reborn. It said winter, next winter, and that was 2022. So, is it Reborn?
It's Rebirth.
It was the Rebirth. Same thing.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see. I'm hoping next winter means 2023.
It'd be like January, February. I'm calling it. But we'll see. It doesn't matter. 16. As someone who hasn't played much of Final Fantasy outside of 7, I started 6, got third of the way through it. I started 10, got like 6 hours in. I started 15, got like 3 hours in. You know, I've fallen off of them for various reasons because all those are very different games, all three of those. But
they are, yeah.
This one, as soon as I saw the first trailer, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. It's a darker fantasy take, and it's like actual fantasy. It's not cyberpunk fantasy. It's not futuristic fantasy. It's not what these other games have been. And I love Final Fantasy VII, so I'm not saying that that's bad, but it's just I'm really up for a very meaty, traditional high fantasy kind of game. Has it called either of you guys? You're not excited?
They killed a chocobo in the first 10 seconds of the trailer. So
they
I'm
sure
not here
did.
For it.
There was a lot of blood.
No, I for a lot of the same reasons you said, it looks cool. I'm cool with toning down the futuristic setting. That's one of the things I love most about Final Fantasy as a series. It's really like an anthology.
Mm-hmm.
You know, every game is its own setting, own world, and there's some games that actually take place in the same world, like 7 and 10. Like, despite all odds, you're like, wow, that's actually the same.
Oh, I didn't know that.
World.
I did not know that. Wow,
that seems
crazy.
wild.
Completely different time periods. Same.
Which one takes place first?
Okay. That's
10 and not 10. 10 takes place in the far, I think, future and far past at different points.
Okay, sure.
Eventually, I want to play through all these Final Fantasy games, but they take dedication.
Yeah.
There's a lot, and they're all so different that you can't just pick one up after finishing the last one and be like, okay. No, you have to relearn it because they're constantly innovating, you know, the RPG genre,
which is a good
as a whole. It is. I'm really excited for this because it's returned to like the roots of more of a fantasy.
Yeah, I'm
a fantasy medieval setting. You know,
I'm gonna brag on myself because I forgot to mention it. I have beaten the original NES Final Fantasy, and that one is just straight raw fantasy, fighting liches and dragons and trolls and ogres. And
I'm gonna play that one too.
Yeah, do it with a guide. Like it's just just follow with a guide.
So hard.
It's really fun.
Using guide.
Okay. It's just obtuse. Like just like the original Zelda games were obtuse. It tells you where to go, and you don't have to follow it one for one. Like use these weapons in these classes. But I did, and I had a great time. So that's my recommendation.
I'll have to look up a guide then. I tried to do that the other day, but my official hardware was having a problem connecting to my controller. So I swapped to playing something else.
I did it on my
For legal reasons, we only use official equipment and licensed software for these recordings.
Yes.
Right, your eyes are pretty. That was lovely.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
I can't see them. I'll take your word for it.
They've shown I think the biggest selling point is the main character, whose name is Clive, which is very funny to me. But then again, one of the others' name is Cloud. So, who cares? And Squall. There are worse names. And Lightning.
Yeah, I'll say a Squall.
They all have pretty bad names.
As long as Sid's in every game, I'm good.
He's not actually. They already ruined that.
Yeah.
He's missing in like 3 of the first 5.
Mm. He's been
So
in
sorry.
most of the recent ones. He was in 15, kind of.
You know, I just gotta say, 9's the best because Vivi is in it. Anyway, go ahead.
I hope that there's dark mages like that in this game. Maybe not like squat,
Yeah.
but like wearing like the big brim hats that like kind of cover their eyes. I feel like that's got to happen. But yeah,
That was a core part of the original games. This fantasy setting. Keep going.
Oh, I was just gonna say. I was gonna say that the biggest like selling point, like the new thing that they've been showing in the trailers, is that the rulers of all these houses across this fantasy kingdom actually transform into the creatures that are typically like summons in the main games. So in the main games, you use materia or you build up enough meter by doing other things, and then you can just use magic to outright summon, like Odin or like a goddess of ice.
Bahamut.
Yeah, giant dragon Bahamut or Mecha Bahamut, like in Crisis Core. That was ridiculous.
That's in the original Final Fantasy VII. Thank you.
Oh, sure, but I got it in Crisis Core, and it was ridiculous. He used the moon to fire a laser. It was awesome.
Pretty awesome.
But the leaders of these houses are actually turning into these characters. So Clive, the main character, I believe, turns into Ifrit. And you can see him, like, he turns into Ifrit. And it's not like some of the games where Ifrit's like, oh, like 10 feet tall. Like, no, he's multiple stories tall. And it's like a titan, basically. And then another character will turn into Shiva, who's an ice summon. And they'll duke it out. And the combat that I've seen looks good. And I don't remember if they've shown the combat of whenever you transform. But I'm really excited to see, like, how much of that you can control, and because it has to feel so powerful playing as these gargantuan, like, legendary characters. And I hope Mecha Bahamut's in it, even if everything else is like not futuristic at all. I think that would be hilarious.
From another dimension.
Yeah,
that's the thing in this universe, kind of.
It's like Legends Arceus when Porygon's around, because Dialga's messing with time, and so the computer Pokemon also exist in the ancient Japan.
Absolutely. So, one thing I gotta say, we've went over all these highly anticipated games, is finding the time to play all the ones that I want to play, because there's just so many different options.
It's not gonna happen. There's no way.
Not gonna happen.
That's why we're talking about them. We're doing that instead of playing them.
This is more time efficient. I'll just have y'all tell me about the ones you really like, and I'll be like,
So, I'm kind of stealing the front runner here, but I was going to ask, out of everything we've talked about, what's one game you know you're going to want to play this year if it releases?
Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm 100% going to make time for Hollow Knight, Zelda, Rebirth, if it comes out, and Spider-Man. The others are up in the air, but those for sure.
Mine that we went over today, guaranteed I will be playing this year's Meet Your Maker. I'm very excited for that.
Doesn't that come out relatively soon?
April.
Yeah. So like first chunk of the year. So you won't have time to do anything else because you'll be too busy creating the perfect death trap.
Exactly. I'll be finishing up Final Fantasy VII before April, right?
I was going to say it, but
you should play it after this call.
You'll have to finish that and delete that off your hard drive or whatever, and then download Integrate. Do
Absolutely.
that from the beginning.
Integrate's like 4 hours long if you main path it, which I did. So
what's okay?
Well, not Integrate, but Intermission, the DLC.
Yeah. Okay, gotcha.
All right, so those are 27 of our most anticipated games for this year. We couldn't limit it to less. We were very excited. Thank you so much for watching. If you stuck with this far, we really appreciate it. Let us know if there are any games that we didn't talk about down in the comments, because I mean, Street Fighter 6. There's a ton of stuff that's not for us necessarily that is still probably going to be great. So let us know what you're excited about in the comments. Again, thanks for watching. Feel free to like, subscribe, share with your friends. Let them know that John's wrong about Aerith, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
You could prove me wrong. Bye.